Hello, Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Kamp, President and CEO of the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce, here for our January 29th, 2021 weekly legislative video update. This is the conclusion of the third week of the legislative session, and there are quite a bit of bills being introduced, but as you can imagine, there's still quite a bit of work to be done, especially on some big issues, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit. Before I get started, though, I did want to thank all of those who participated in our weekly, or excuse me, our first monthly now, what they'll be throughout the legislative session, legislative lunch. It went from 12 to 1 today. We were very, very pleased with the participation we had, both from our members. We had about 90 people on at the highest level, highest number, and also from our legislators. I want to thank Senator Dawson, Senator Shipley, and Representatives Segrist and McConkey for participating. It was really insightful and very, very helpful. We also want to thank our sponsors as well. Those sponsors for that event were Viridian Credit Union, Advanced Southwest Iowa Corporation, Black Hills Energy, Southwest Iowa Association of Realtors, and U.S. Bank. We thank them for their support and really making sure that we can continue to provide the best resources possible when it comes to advocacy throughout legislative session. That said, I wanted to jump right into our legislative update. There's some key issues that we've been monitoring that had a lot of attention today, or excuse me, this week. And I want to make sure that I have a chance to expand on those for our members. The first issue is broadband. We did see a bill get proposed for broadband expansion. It's an ambitious goal the governor set in her condition of the state address for $450 million invested over the next 3 years. So we did see a proposal come forward with that. We anticipate a lot of conversation about that. That is a big number for budget numbers. We will have to look at, what federal money can be used towards that versus state money. If there's CARES Act money, obviously that can be used in that as well as part of the federal funds. Those all need to be considered. So there's going to be a lot of conversations as to what that looks like. But broadband is a key issue, especially as we've seen throughout the pandemic when it comes to telehealth, working and schooling remotely. But we also want to note the fact that, we're fortunate here in this community that we have Blink, that public-private nonprofit partnership and collaboration here in Council Bluffs, but not everyone's so fortunate. So we want to make sure that we can provide that level of service throughout the state if at all possible. The next item that I want to make sure I touch on is housing. There's a few bills for housing and redevelopment that are coming to light now as we get further into the session. And a few of those I want to focus on are the workforce housing tax credit. The governor proposed upping that appropriation to $50 million. We're very much supportive of that. We look forward to working with the legislature on that. Obviously, that's a big increase and a big number. So we do have to provide some convincing information, data, cases, things like that to the legislature to show them and speak to the impact that that program specifically is having, as well as other programs like the Brownfield Grayfield tax credit program that the governor proposed extending for an additional 10 years and also doubling the appropriation from $10 million to $20 million. We want to make sure that we're providing cases to our legislators here locally, but also at the entire state level to really show the impact that those are having and the return on investment and the economic impact that those are having. There's also going to be a new housing tax credit that'll be proposed. There'll be more on that later once Director Durham proposes her bills formally and presents them to the legislature. The child care, that's a huge issue. There's 6 bills that came out, 1 through 6, House file. Those were all regarding child care to start off in the House this session. We've seen a couple of those, 3 or 4, I think, move forward. So far, we know that some of them are going to move, and we know that that'll be a positive for workforce as we go forward, because we know there's thousands of individuals here locally, but also throughout the state who are not working and are staying out of the labor force due to the fact that childcare is an issue for them. So we want to try to help them and address that issue as much as we can. Another issue is mental health. That's a big issue that was proposed in the Invest in Iowa bill last year. That bill got pause hit on it for this session, but the governor did propose providing $15 million for mental health services in her condition of the state and her budget. That's something we do anticipate being part of a larger tax package discussion. Senator Dawson on our call, our meeting over the lunch hour today, address that specifically. There's more details to come on that, but mental health can be expected to probably be included in a larger tax reform bill that will be forthcoming here this legislative session. That brings me to tax reform, which is a huge issue. That's something, when you're looking at trying to decrease our corporate and personal income tax and moving different liabilities and different exemptions and deductions and tax credits, that's a huge issue. And Senator Dawson's right at the middle of that, and we're very thankful to have him in that capacity as chair of the Ways and Means committee, because the Senate's going to be the leader on this session. Just as the House is leading on childcare, the Senate's leading on tax reform. So we're going to work very closely with him as they look at elimination of triggers and look at possibly including things for water quality and recreation. Like I mentioned, mental health. Will there be another sales tax piece put into that? Because that I will 3/8 cent, that's tied to sales tax. So how will we look at this tax package, including income tax, but also property and sales tax potentially as well? So it could be a very, very big bill. We do look forward to seeing some more details on that in the future, and we look forward to working with our legislators on that, as I mentioned, to provide them some good information as to how that may be done, in our opinion. Another item I wanted to touch on has to do with a rural set aside for Iowa Economic Development Authority tax credits, really just ensuring that a certain amount or a certain appropriation percent goes to rural projects. We're a little hesitant on bills like that. We're registered undecided, but we're hesitant on things like that because anytime you could even remotely say you're creating or picking winners and losers, or you're kind of drawing a line in the sand in that regard, we're always hesitant on that. And we really want to provide the flexibility to the Director Durham to provide those funds as she sees fit, as appropriated and as approved by the legislature and the governor, obviously. But she's done a very, very good job in making sure those funds go equally to rural and urban. That's easily seen in any presentation she gives. So that is a bill that we will continue to monitor, because we understand the importance of investing in rural, but we want to make sure it's done, if there's a conversation in that regard, that there's the flexibility and that it's done in an appropriate manner within the current mechanisms and systems we have provided to Director Durham and her staff to do such things. Another issue that was really, really big, it was the thing that we heard the most about in the media and most about in general, and the legislators received the most emails on this week, it was school choice. And that had to do with vouchers. It had to do with a lot of different things. We also saw a bill pass for requirement of offering 100% in-person learning that just got signed into law earlier today, actually. But the school choice bill passed out of the Senate on a 26-21 vote yesterday. It's now headed to the House. We expect the House to pull some things like vouchers and stuff out of that. They obviously just received it, so more details to come on that. But we expect that bill to look very differently if it passes the House to then head back to the Senate for reconsideration. And we think that educators and those working in the education sector will be more pleased with some of the changes that may be proposed in the House, because there was a lot of concern with our partners, understandably so, in the education sector. And we worked closely with Drs. Murillo and Drs. Knost on making sure that their inputs were heard, and that we're really making sure that we're handling that in the best way possible. We're registered undecided on that bill right now. We really want to wait and see what happens in the House and how we can most positively impact that bill going forward. But we are watching it very closely and working with our education partners on that, just as we would any other issue for local government or any of our major partner organizations. The last piece that I want to touch on is it was an immigration bill put forward by Senator Garrett this week as well. We're always very watchful of bills like that, bills like E-Verify, bills like Religious Freedom Restoration Act, bills like bathroom bills, any bill that could be determined discriminatory or makes workforce, that could create workforce issues for our employers, is something that we're always watching closely. There's a reason when you see bills like this come forward, there's a lot of the time one of the first registrants against the bill is a large corporation or a large private sector entity in the state, because it can negatively impact our ability to attract and retain workers. So that's something we're always watching very closely. When bills like this come up, the chambers, the business associations, the business organizations in general, businesses themselves, the business community in general watches very closely on these bills. So that's something we'll continue to monitor going forward, because we just want to make sure that we're not adversely impacting our ability to attract and retain a qualified workforce. That's the number one issue for most of our members, and we don't want to knowingly do that to ourselves. It can also have some impacts on community attraction and tourism that we don't necessarily want as well. So we'll continue to monitor bills like that. If you have questions regarding that, I'm happy to expand on that. Just reach out to me, and I'm happy to touch on any of those bills. Again, I just want to make sure I take the time to thank all of those who participated in our first legislative lunch. I thought it was very helpful. It was very well attended, and it was just a very good resource to our members. So I want to thank everyone that was involved to make that possible. I just want to thank every one of our members who watches these videos, who keeps engaged in policy and advocacy, our public policy committee as well. It's just very helpful and uplifting to know that we have that support and that participation and engagement from you. So thank you for your current support and your your ongoing support going forward into the future. It's definitely noted and it's definitely appreciated. So thank you very much. With that, I will conclude the video and I thank you very much for your support and I hope you have a very nice weekend.